Welcome to the Unearthed Man podcast, the journey to becoming a conscious man, hosted by Milvo. Hey all, Milvo here, and welcome to episode 19 of the Unearthed Man podcast. I've got a super exciting guest coming up today, but before we get to that, how good was the interview with Steve Capps last week? Steve's an awesome man and doing some amazing work in primary education, so definitely make sure you jump in and check him out. As you know, you can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and now I'm actually moving across into this amazing new app called Awaken, and that's part of what we will discuss today. So to that point, let's just get straight into my guest today. So imagine being successful to the point that by the age of 38 years old, you'd build a company, sold it, and now no longer needed to work another day in your life and retire. What would you do next? That's exactly what my guest achieved for himself. However, a few years later, he found himself in a low place, asking himself, is there more to life than this? This was a gateway to a journey of self-discovery, deeper connection to those around him, and sharing his light with the rest of the world. This was a clear example of how events and stories that form the fuel that drive us to access our success can also be the hurdle we need to overcome in living a full and meaningful life. My guest is a wonderfully open and lovingly energetic man who recently founded and launched the Awaken App, the social media platform for a conscious generation with a single goal to open the eyes of men and awaken the masses. Welcome to the Unearthed Man podcast, Karl. Ohare. How are you, buddy?
Hello, Milvo. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here.
Mate, it's my pleasure. And I just really want to start by, first of all, saying thank you for creating the Awaken app. I think it's actually created a platform for a lot of people who have probably struggled to be able to just share their own truths and their own thoughts and their own beliefs in a very safe environment that they can't find they can do on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn. So having that place of, I think, where people can just have the truth is just awesome. So thanks, man. I really appreciate the fact that you did that for all of us.
Wow, I think you're actually the first person in the world to say thank you for that. So that's it's very makes me very emotional, actually. Yeah, thank you for saying thank you. Yeah, Awaken App is just that. It was a place built out of my own experiences. I just realised that after a long journey, that I needed to create a safe space because all of the stuff that people talk about in there and experience in their life is real and true. And most people don't share their real self or their true self or their true life on mainstream social media. You know, we have a mask, don't we? We have a mask for Instagram, which is like the perfect life. We have a mask for Facebook, you know, everything's perfect. We have a mask for Snapchat, all that kind of stuff. We put these different masks on to appear in a certain way, like we feel we have to. But I just wanted to create a space where you could just go and be yourself and talk about the stuff you want to talk about and tell your truth to the world. And maybe learn some truth as well along the way.
Well, and that's the whole thing. So for me, the journey of, the Unearthed Man and what I've been on is about constantly learning to how to operate with an open mind and an open heart and remove all those masks. So, I am me. I am the Unearthed Man. I am Milvo. I am this at work. I am this at home. And the closer I can get to just being that one single true person, the less anxiety I have and the less stress I have because I'm not trying to act in all these different roles. And so definitely, as I said, having a platform where that allows me to continue to drop into who the true person I am and feeling safe is really, really good. So let me take a step back. So the intro, 38, highly successful, sold up your business, said, that's it. I can now live the rest of my life in a true happy. I've got all the material stuff in the world. Look, how good is life? Let's talk a little bit through that journey and how you went from that point in time. I know you've talked about your successful business on other podcasts, but I'm more about the journey from that point to, what happened and where you went to.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I'm most excited to talk to you today because I get to talk about me now, and how that journey helped me to transition into the me who I am now. And it's important to just to touch upon the guy that I was before, if that makes sense. So,
absolutely, yes.
You've been through a similar journey, right? You are this person for literally since I was 18. I built up this persona because I felt like I had to of being this kind of corporate business dude, and I maintained that literally maintained that, acted in the way that I thought a, successful corporate business guy wearing a suit with a briefcase would act in every situation. And some childhood experiences which I had, which I think are important to talk about as well, which effectively began to build that mask before I entered the corporate world. And then when I entered the corporate world, I just stuck in that. And literally, I went to a festival recently. It was in April of last year called Burning Swan, in Perth, and it was great. And they had this big wooden effigy, a huge thing that someone had made. And you went and you wrote on something that you wanted to burn, right? I wrote on, for 20 years, I was a corporate robot.
Beautiful.
Goodbye, corporate robot, full stop. And I kind of stood there and just watched it, burn at the end of that journey. So childhood experiences effectively made me believe that I couldn't rely on anyone else, and that I would actually never ask for help from anyone else. That was some experiences that I had with my father, very early age. And that just lasted. I just built upon that mask, that belief my whole life. And that led, when bolted onto the corporate stuff, it meant that I just kept myself in a kind of very thin emotional space.
Yes. Very
thin emotional space, like a little window, I guess. Because when you suppress, I've learned this, since when you suppress sadness, that I'd experienced as a kid, with my father leaving and some other experiences, when you suppress that, what I didn't know is that you also suppress every other type of emotion.
Yes.
Every other type of extreme emotion. So in me suppressing the pain and the trauma from what happened when I was like 11 years old, and then that being built upon in my corporate life, wearing a suit and briefcase and thinking I had to be that guy, I also stopped extreme love, extreme happiness, extreme anger, so I just lived in this space. My wife used to call me Constant Karl,
Right.
People would say, Karl never gets upset, he never gets angry, he's always cool, he's always all right. So that was me pretty much for, 20 years until I went on a men's course, similar to the one that you did, which just, it all started there, cracked me open and away we go.
Yeah, I think that's the I like that term you used at the end. Cracked me open. I think that's what we actually do. These courses, they put a chink in that armor. They just open up, and there's enough to go. Hang on a minute. There is light out here, and there is love out here, and there's this whole other space I can actually work your way through. From your dad's experience, and I get that a little bit. I visited back with my dad when I was 48, 49. Interestingly, I had pain in my right elbow, and this holistic chiropractor said, mate, I'm not going to work on your body. You need to go and solve your dad issues. So I did. I wrote my dad a letter, and I went presented to him face to face, and we had this amazing conversation. And we hadn't hugged, since I'd left home at the age of 18, so 30 odd years. For the last 2 or 3 years of his life, we're actually able to meet and hug, and it just broke down all those barriers. And it's amazing how much you're right. We just live in this, as you said, this thin layer of lacking of emotion, because any emotion, we just don't want to deal with it all. So we just put it all away somewhere else. So yeah, it's a really tough piece to work through.
Yeah, a huge part of my healing, I would say, especially with my dad. Similar story. My dad moved to Australia. I was in the UK. He moved to Australia, when I was very young, maybe 12 years old or something. So I hadn't really had a relationship with him for, a long time. And when I was doing breath work, which I know that you guys, you like to talk about. So when I was doing breath work on this men's course, the beautiful man, Tim Morrison, that ran the course, was taking on these amazing breathwork journeys, which was transformational for me. And one was on the week of the masculine wounds of our father. Now I went into this deep state, and I saw my dad in a way that I'd never seen him before in our relationship. So my dad was orphaned at age 13, 14. So both his parents died within a year of each other at age 13, 14.
Right.
And so I saw him literally put up that wall to protect himself from pain and trauma, huge pain and trauma, right at the age of 13.
Yeah.
And he was brought up by his 3 other elder brothers. So imagine what that would have been like. No parents, being brought up by three brothers, really tough environment. So my dad's a lovely, charming guy, right? But he had to grow up in that. So he's obviously built huge barriers around him emotionally. And he does. When you look at him now, he's a beautiful man, but he lives in this state of, I'm fantastic, everything's great all the time. He's still there, right? So I saw him go through all this pain, and then I saw him have me as a child, and I saw him treat me. He was unable to give me the unconditional love that I know I'm now able to give to my kids as a result of my healing. So, and he had the mistakes that he made, leaving home, all that. I saw it as not being his fault. I saw the pain that he was, and the inability for him to emotionally cope with the challenges that he had in his life, which led to him leaving our family and a few other things as well. So I saw it, and I felt sorry for him, as opposed to, I'd let go of anger a long time ago, but I just understood why he'd done it all. So like you, I called him the next day, big healing thing, and he was driving. I said, Dad, you don't have to talk here. I'm just going to tell you what happened last night. And I want to tell you that I understand why you did everything. I love you unconditionally, regardless. But I see myself treating my son in the same kind of, not cold, but coldish distance kind of way that you treated me. And I understand that came from you into me, and that I'm treating my son because of the trauma that you had, that you passed on to me, which I learned. And I see myself doing it to my at the time, Flynn was like 5, my 5-year-old son. And it was a really emotional moment. I said, Dad, I'm just going to tell you now. And I was crying. I said, I'm cutting that cord now. That chain stops here, Yeah. And I got choked up, and I said, I'm going to engage with my son. I'm going to give him, deep, unconditional love, and all this. And I started crying, and he choked up on the phone and said, okay, Karl, I'm so proud of you. I'm going to go now, and he put the phone down. And like you, to hear you say that's amazing. I started crying unconditionally, just blubbering. I was on my own in the house. And I opened my arms up like this, crying, because so many men closed off, don't they? And
yes, correct.
I just remember crying, like this. And this thing in my stomach, like a knot, like a sick thing, started to move from my stomach and started to move up me. And as I was crying, I was thinking, what is that? I started choking. And this thing just came out of my mouth. Like that movie, The Green Mile?
Yeah. I do.
It just went, and it came out of my mouth. And I just knew that was the trauma. That was the trauma that had been carried in me, my soul, my body, whatever, my whole life through him. And it was just released and gone. Just an amazing moment.
So I'm just shaking. I've got goosebumps, right? And I'm actually feeling emotional just because of what you're telling me, because it's just recalled the same emotions and the same feelings that I went through. I was the same. The song we finished on after our breath work was What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong. And it's one of my most favorite songs in the world. And for them to play it, like not even knowing that would have been. And in the end, I'm just smiling and laughing, because this whole... It's like, I'm human, I'm free, and this whole place was just, it's an amazing, freeing, light sensation that once you let. But I'm glad you talked about that Green Mile, because I know for me, it was a very similar sensation. I could feel it exiting out the ends of my fingers. It was almost like, I know there's even these other horror movies where bugs leave people and everything else. It was the exact same sensation. So thanks for that. It's a beautiful story. Thank you. So, and I just want to cover on Tim Morrison, right? Tim Morrison's an awesome guy. I love him. He's definitely on my to get on list for the podcast, because I'd love to spend heaps of time talking to Tim. And if you're into cacao, Tim does Peruvian cacao. So basically, as Bam spoke about last week, there's 3 places to get cacao. There's from Tim, Peruvian, Seth Slade, which you get Samoan, and then this other Guatemalan that Bam does. So,
well, I know you talk about your brothers. So Tim's one of my brothers now, right? So, and some of my journeys, some of my most amazing experiences, the beginning of a lot of amazing experiences began at Tim's cacao soul flight ceremony.
Yeah, beautiful.
In March of last year. So, I've had some 2 actually phenomenally amazing experiences from drinking cacao and then doing Tim's breath work. He's a very special guy, and that cacao is what people say it is. It is magical, heart-opening, connect to Mother Earth's heartbeat stuff. It's real. And I've experienced that in some amazing journeys.
Yeah. Before my journey took place, we went to a yoga studio and they did a cacao ceremony. And I went along with my wife, and I joked around saying, I can't wait to get into this hot chocolate. This hot chocolate thing's going to be really great. It was just dissing it, right? Just being an arrogant ass, right? And now every morning we ritually have a cacao. We sit on our balcony, myself, my wife, and we just have this, we'll let the sun come on our bodies before we start the day. And it's just the most amazing, awesome way to start the day of just, as you said, the heart opening and so forth. So good. So let's move on. So you've had these amazing awakenings, which, once we start to open up our minds and open up our hearts, and as I like to say, we move away from judgment and we just start to go into inquiry. And the Awaken app, for those who want to get on it, there are multiple areas you go into there, and it's open for anybody, all the way from, if you're just going through a healing process, or whatever else, through to, astral beliefs, spirit beliefs, pre-life, post-life. It is just an amazing open platform. So let's talk where you're at. You've come from that position. You've now opened up. So what's life now looking like for you, and what's happening in your space now, Karl? And bring in the app as you need on the way through, if you need to.
You mean where I am now at the end of the journey?
Oh no! Well, let's continue on. Let's talk through. You've gone through the breathwork. Let's continue on this amazing path that you're going on.
Okay, cool. So let's go. So, and I wrote down the dates and times to give you some kind of time frame as to how all this amazing stuff has happened. Right. So you've got a bit of
beautiful
going on there. So this was in. Let me see. 2018. Right. So 2018. I'd effectively retired from work, I'd done that thing with the business, and back in 2014. So I'd had 4 years of pretty much doing nothing, right? And thinking, being a bit disappointed really with the nothing. I thought nothing was going to be the goal and everything, to be able to do nothing. And actually, it's actually quite sad and quite lonely, to have nothing to do, or to have no purpose or no value, or for anyone to be valuing what you have in your head. It's quite sad and lonely, right? That's what I found anyway. No one to talk to, really. Everyone's at work. Go away, Karl. I'm too busy. That kind of thing.
Yep.
So I started to ask myself this one question, right? And this actually is the key. I started to ask the question back in 2018, and only now, after a huge amount of experience and personal learning and growth and everything, I'm starting to believe that I start to have some answers to that question. So the question is, back in late 2018, was this very simple: is this it?
Yep.
Right. Very simple. So I was like, hang on a minute. Is this it? Right. So you work hard, you grow a business, you put some money in the bank, you buy your house by the beach in Perth, Australia, get the sports car in the garage, all that stuff that you think you're supposed to do. Right. And then you haven't got to go to work every day. 9 to 5, wife, 3 kids, 2 dogs, tick, tick, tick. Right. Tick, tick, tick. Right. But yet I had this missing thing in my stomach. And the best way I can liken it is when I started my business, when I started working at 18, I used to tell people, I don't know what it is. I've got this thing in my stomach that's like a burning feeling, and it doesn't go away. And I interpreted that feeling at 18 years old as I'm not where I should be.
Okay. Yes.
And that stayed with me my whole life until I sold my business at age 38. So it stayed with me for 20 years. That feeling, I'd wake up, it'd be there every day. And I believe that's what would drive me to run the business and work hard and all that kind of stuff, right? Yep. Now I look back and think it's something different, which I'll tell you about in a bit. So 2018, I'm asking the question, is this it, right? And actually there's a really cool moment, quite sad actually in a way, but really cool in another way, where Susie, my wife, had come to me and I was sitting on my lounge in my house near the beach looking sad. And she came and said to me, Karl, are you okay? I've noticed that you just seem really kind of distant recently. And I said, I'm going to be honest with you, Susie. I'm asking this one question. Is this it? She went, what do you mean, is this it? You've got everything. You've done this, you've done that, you've got everything. She said, you've got me and the kids. Are we not enough?
Yep.
And I was honest and I said, no, it's all not enough. Not that I want more, but it's not answering my question. It's not dealing with this empty space that I've got inside me, which is telling me that there's something more. I can't describe it, right? So literally, Milvo, the second I started to energetically ask that question and especially say it out loud, everything started to change. My entire world, the people in it, my experiences just went off the scale. And it was like someone took me off a train, a commuter train. Imagine sitting on a commuter train that you were just going on in a certain direction, and you know the direction you're going on, and there's nice people around you who are reading the paper, the same people every day. And it's like someone picked up my train, took it off that track, put it on a completely different track going in a completely different direction, and then pushed it really hard, right? And then at every stop, of which there are many, new people would get on who were exactly the perfect people to get on that train at exactly the right time at every stop, and the train doesn't stop.
Yes.
It keeps going that fast. So that's what began. And then Susie bought me a men's course. She bought me Tim's Invictus Bring Out the Warrior Within course.
Okay, nice.
In the Christmas of 2018. She didn't tell me that she bought it for me because she knew I wouldn't go on it. 2 weeks before the course, in March, she says, "Maybe I bought you this course. It's a men's course." I said, "Well, you can F off. I'm not going to." It's important to be honest here, right? Because I know there's
absolutely.
Right? And I want to help men to understand who are in my position where I was that it's okay to think like that, right? But they're wrong. So I was in a position where I just said, F off. I just said, F off, I'm not going, right? You're joking. I'm not going to sit in a room full of drongos. These are the exact words that I said. Drongos talking about their problems. I have no problems. I actually said, look at me, what are you talking about? I've got no problems. My life is great, right? I actually said those words. And at the time, I actually believed it, which is important as well. Yes. No one could have convinced me that my life wasn't great, that I wasn't great, because I was still saying to everyone, how are you, Karl? No matter how I was, I would say, I'm fantastic.
Yeah, why wouldn't I be?
Why wouldn't I be, right? Anyway, I went on the course, and the first night, Tim did this exercise with men. There's like 20 guys there, men. I didn't know anyone. And he said, "Why are you here, Karl?" I said, "Honestly, I don't know. I've got this weird feeling in my stomach that maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's the questions, but hopefully this course will help that." At the end of the night, he did an exercise. We had all the men stand up in a line. They said, "Close your eyes." And then we all closed our eyes. And he said, "Okay, if you've had suicidal thoughts in the last, 6 months, stay standing. And if you haven't, step back." And he did that. He said, in the last month, and has anyone had any suicidal thoughts in the last, week, stay standing in the middle. And when I opened my eyes, there was about 15 guys around the room at the outside. And there was like 4 or 5 guys standing in the middle of the room who had felt suicidal in the last week.
Yep. And
I went home. I couldn't believe the emotion that I felt as a man to be amongst men who were that, it makes me want to cry now, who were that vulnerable, and to be in a space where I was trusted for other men to tell me that. I went home, and that entire week I just couldn't stop crying. Something just literally like someone just drilled a hole in me, cracked it open, and it like a dam being opened, and emotion just started to pour out of me. I'd cry at every opportunity all week.
Which is great, which is actually really great and really powerful, and something as men we need to learn to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then the course went on. But in Tim's cacao ceremony, talking about an experience in March of 2019, I went to Tim's cacao ceremony, drank the breath work. And during the breath work, I felt this, I felt my heart suddenly, I heard it, boom, 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 boom. And then this energy field came out of my body and started to vibrate at a huge level. Remember Rolf Harris with his big metal thing, whoa, whoa, with his metal, whoa, whoa, whoa. So it was like the pulse of the energy pulse of my heart was doing this, whoa, whoa. And I saw these rings of energy bursting out in front of me, bursting. And I never had an experience like this in my life, ever, right? This is corporate dude and everything. Yeah. I was like, boom, 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 boom. Right? I was like, oh my God, people next to me must feel this. The people in the next street must be feeling this. This is ridiculous. And at the same time, I saw a gray planet with the same pulse in space, with the same pulse coming from it. Boom, 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 da, da, boom. Wow. I was like, whoa, what's going on there? And then I saw like 7 different men's faces in space next to the planet, one behind each other, different men's faces. And I was thinking, what's that? What does that mean? Whoa. And then during the same experience, I started to feel like, the way I can describe it is plasma balls of energy, like tangible plasma balls of energy, which I could squeeze like a sponge. I'm talking, it was, squeeze. And my hands were like this on the ground, lying down. And these balls of energy lifted my arms off the ground. So my arms are hovering 3 inches above the ground on their own, supported by these plasma balls of energy. I know what this sounds like, which I could squeeze. And I was like, what's going on? Whoa. And when I finished the breathwork, I came out and told my wife, Susie, who's lying next to me, I said, oh my God, this stuff happened with the pulse and the planets. She's like, whoa, that's cool. And I looked at my hand and there's a perfect blister that had come up, a physical blister that had come up on the top of my hand, perfect cylinder, a round blister right there. I've got a video of it. I'm like, whoa, look what happened there. That's a result of whatever happened during this breathwork.
Yep.
So that was my first experience of Cacao and Tim's soul flight ceremony.
Yeah.
The next one, if you want to hear it, was way more powerful.
Let's keep going.
Okay, mate. So this was on the 26th of March. I've documented everything all the way through right till now. I keep a diary of all these experiences because some of them are literally out of this world.
Yep.
So on the 26th of March, I'm doing breath work at Tim's course, and it was Guilt and Shame Week, which is relevant, right? Because all these men's courses have a similar theme. And honestly, I remember one of the guys saying to me, he said, how much guilt do you carry around with you? Do you feel guilty? I feel guilty all the time. I said, honestly, I don't really feel like I carry guilt with me. It's not something that I feel like I'm carrying it around with me or whatever. And I had to really try and find something to feel guilty about. So anyway, I found a moment where I left an ex-girlfriend when I was 21 and I felt really bad about the way that I just left. And, you know, I loved her family. I didn't really say goodbye. And I was consciously thinking about that during this breath work. Anyway, what happened during the breath work was effectively someone plugged me into, no one did, but it felt like someone plugged me into, you know, 1,000,000 volts. Best way I can describe it. So I'm lying there on the floor and then suddenly I start shaking. I'm talking, it's like being electrocuted, I can imagine. Gritting my teeth, hands clenched, and every muscle in my body is clenched like this. And this went on for like 5 minutes. Right? Yep. Tim comes over, puts his hand in my hand, and I almost break his fingers because I'm squeezing it so hard. And I felt this. Now, I'm going to talk about what I think it was afterwards, but I felt this immense energy. I'm talking like being plugged into the universe. And then that energy started to drain from my head and my toes slowly, like this, slowly. Yep. It was being compressed into the middle of my body, my solar plexus area around here. And as it got about halfway down, I swear, this energy beam, like a Star Trek energy beam, right? A circular energy beam about this big, shot out of my middle of my body up into space. And this energy was draining. I'm going, this thing's going up into space. I'm like, and it just kept going until all the energy had been used in that beam and just left me. And I'm lying on the floor like a dead fish. I couldn't even move for minutes. Couldn't even sit up. It just sucked every bit of energy out of my body. Sat up and I was like, oh my God, did anyone? Everyone was like, nah, that was just you, dude. Okay, what happened there? And later on in my journey, I was told, and I did a lot of research about that, and I believe that I had what's called, during that moment, a full body Kundalini awakening.
Yes.
Now, I didn't know anything about it at the time. This was a researcher who'd studied lots of people who've had similar experiences. They said, I know what that is. I've spoken to people about that before. It's that. And when they explained what it was, you know, apparently the seed of the energy of life sits in your bottom chakra or somewhere around your pelvis, like a cut snake, the snake of Kundalini. Yes. And when it's released, it's literally like the energy of creation that activates all your different chakras in your body and effectively begins a process of spiritual transmutation.
Yes.
Which I certainly went on.
So the Kundalini, for those who are listening to the podcast and trying to work out. So basically there are 7 chakras in a system and we basically have the root chakra. And basically for men, our energy source, our true energy source actually sits down effectively, you know, if you like, down in our groin area. The way to activate your Kundalini energy, and I do this in my meditation and I do to get up into the heart space, is you effectively squeeze your perineum. And Sam Lewis and I talked about this on an earlier podcast. So the perineum is that area between basically your testicles and your bumhole. And it's just that area, you know, like if you've got to stop having a wee, you squeeze and you can hold it in. Same as women, they can do the same thing. So by squeezing that, you can actually generate this energy source, which is tapping into this as Karl said, basically this sacred energy that we all contain, and then we can actually let that drift. And by releasing that, you can actually bring it all the way up into your body and up into all the different other chakras in your heart chakra and into your, into your third eye chakra and everything else. And it becomes an amazing way of driving energy first thing in the morning or everything else. And then, you mix it in with some cacao, which opens your heart space, and it's just can be super powerful. So yeah, absolutely. No, I know exactly where you are with that, Karl, because that's when you can tap into that, it's such a huge, amazing experience.
And even at the most basic level, when you think about the question that I was asking, only months before, is this it? We have experience like that, or some experiences along those journeys, and it starts to answer that question. It just sows the seed that actually, I'm 44 years old here, and now I'm starting to believe and understand and be shown that no, this isn't it. There is more to me. There is more to everything than what I thought. And it's almost like that. My whole journey up to age, 44 was literally to get me to a point where I could start.
Yes.
As simple as that. All the business, all the stuff, all the learning, everything was just to get me to the start line.
Yes. Yeah. I'm 53 soon, and the same thing. I know exactly right. I feel like my life is now just starting, but I'm grateful for every single person I've met, every single experience I've had, because I would not be at the start line if it wasn't for every one of those experiences to get to this point. So I can say, right, now we can move forward from here, and let's continue to work out that question. I love that question, which is this it? And what is this? And how do we continue to find it? So, so you've got to, I think, March 2019. Is that where we got to? Last year. So where to from here? So there's more to your journey story from this, Karl. I'm sure there is. Let's continue.
Okay, mate, here we go. So this is where it gets interesting, right? It wasn't interesting already. So, at the end of March and the beginning of April, around about the same time, Susie, my wife of 20 years, mother of 3 kids, we sleep together every night. She began to be woken up at exactly 2:55 a.m. every morning. I was asleep, and she would be woken up with a sound in her ear. She didn't know what the sound was, and she'd be walking around the house. This has happened for a couple of weeks. She'd be walking around the house thinking, is it the fridge? No. What is it? Is the radio on somewhere? What's that noise, right? And after a couple of weeks of this, she woke me up. So a couple of weeks, 2:55 a.m. exactly, she'd be woken up and hear the same noise in her right ear. And she woke me up after a couple of weeks and said, baby, I'm sorry I got to wake you up, but can you hear that? She's doing my head in. I'm waking up every night. Can you hear that? And I said, no, there's no noise, darling. It's completely silent, right? I said, what's the noise like? And she described the noise, and it sounded just like Morse code, the way she described it, right? Like the actual noise is, that's the exact one, right? And I said, that's Morse code. My wife doesn't know what it is. She says, what's Morse code? And I said, it's kind of like a international, they used to use it in the war and stuff like this, cross boundaries, cross languages. She was like, oh, well, anyway, I've been hearing this noise at 2:55 a.m. every morning for 3 weeks. I don't know what it is. I said, well, anyway, go back to sleep. Maybe it's tinnitus or whatever like this. So she has a spiritual friend, spiritual healer friend, and she went to meet her for a coffee. I think they were walking the dogs on the beach, and she told her friend about this thing that was going on. And straight away, oh no, an important fact here is that Susie, in walking around the house, had figured out that the noise was louder when she got closer to me.
Ah, okay.
So in some way, the noise that she was hearing was coming from around me. Yes. It would get fainter the further away she went away from me. So she said to her friend, what do you think I should do? And her friend said, okay, honestly, I think next time it happens, I think there's some kind of message perhaps for Karl there. As strange as that sounds, I think next time it happens, you need to wake up and ask the question in your mind, is there a message for Karl? As crazy as that sounds, and you went, oh, come on. All right, then. Okay, I'll do it because it's not going away. So the next night, sure enough, the 2:55, she hears the Morse code noise, and she, in her mind, she sits up and she asks the question, and before she can finish the question, the answer was put in her head, and it was yes.
Right.
Now I know what this sounds like, right? And I've been very anxious about talking about this. This is the first time, as I mentioned earlier, that I've talked about this in public, but this is my truth, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So this is something that I want to talk about. And I've cross-checked it with Susie. She's okay with me telling part of the story as well, because it's very personal. So the answer was yes. And the way she describes it, it was a thought that wasn't her own, that was directly placed in her mind. right? So Susie's an author. She writes books about, she wrote a book about her daughter. She's just written another book about healing and, healing the mother, healing the child. Some really beautiful stuff. Mm-hmm. So she's a writer, right? So Susie went into the kitchen, opened up a piece of paper and wrote down a 1-page A4 direct specific message for me from somewhere. And she forgot about it. So she went back to bed, half asleep in the dark, woke up in the morning, woke me up with a cup of tea and said, "Oh my effing God, look what I wrote last night at 3 a.m. in the morning." Right?
Yeah.
And I read it, and it's just a profoundly beautiful, amazing, but very specific message for me from somewhere, telling me that I was this, I was that. I'm gonna go on a journey. I must do this. I must do this. Literally, telling me that I have to do something soon. And I won't read the messages because I think that's probably for another podcast, a more in-depth one.
Yep, that's fine.
But anyway, a very specific message from someone else somewhere else. We didn't know what it was. This freaked us out completely. Anyway, as strange as it was, we were like, "Oh God, we don't know what this is." I then went to a festival that weekend. And I was bouncing around the festival, and Susie didn't hear the message. She didn't hear any noise in her right ear the whole weekend I was gone.
Okay.
I come back on the Monday, and I'm sleeping upstairs with one of the kids in the guest room. And Susie wakes up in the middle of the night, the first night that I'm back, and she hears the noise, 2:55 a.m. And she gets up and she's written down, "This is so loud now, I'm scared," And she wrote 2 pages of A4 of a secondary, more specific message for me at the same time, and then went back to bed. So I'm reading this in the morning. Now, this message is super specific. So this message is effectively telling me, it used the words, we never heard this before. Karl is starlight. Karl is starseed. Seeds from another galaxy. Karl must go on a journey. It will feel like he will not want to come, but he must come. He must learn the fruits of who he is. Yep. Right? This is that's paraphrasing of some of the paragraphs. So we're going, "What's going on? This is ridiculous." And at the end of the 2-page message, which was very specific, told me to download a particular person's meditation CD for making contact.
Okay, yes.
It was a real guy, right, with a real CD, but in fact now he's got an app. So I just downloaded his app, which, who knew? So really specific stuff. And it said at the end of the message, it said, he must come. It said, new idea, journey. And then at the end, there was 4 words. And it was event, desert, others, contact.
Right.
Right? And Susie's written, OMFG at the end of it. Oh my fucking God, right?
Yes. Yep.
Didn't understand what that meant. I didn't understand what that meant either. So now we're having this conversation going, okay, this is weird, right? This has happened twice now. And it's pretty scary, actually, right? Like, what's going on?
I could imagine.
What does it mean? Does it mean that I have to take some mates from Perth, go to the desert, and a big UFO is going to come and beam us all up, right? We were just talking about everything. It was like, what is it? What's going on? Have you just made this up in your head? Like, well, I don't think so. So crazy moment in our life, really. But then Susie went on a breathwork retreat to Bali to learn breathwork, right, for a week. And this is where it got a bit weird. So at the end of the breathwork, this lady, a friend that she's met on the week, came to her and said, "Hey, would you be my friend? We're friends at the end of this week." Susie said, "Yeah, sure. Give me your phone." So Susie gave her mobile phone to put in her details. And Susie said, "Oh, I see that you're a member of some UFO groups. Do you like that kind of stuff?" And the lady said, "Yeah, if it wasn't for this event here in Bali, I'd be at another event which is happening in 2 weeks' time called Contact in the Desert."
No way.
Which where lots of other people go to talk about all this stuff, right? Like experts from all around the world, 4,000 people go. I didn't even know this thing existed, right? This was not really my bag before any of this, right? So Susie phones me from Bali, my wife, mother of 3 kids. And imagine this as a wife phoning you, right? She says, "Baby, this has just happened. This can't be a coincidence. This is ridiculous, okay? Yes. I would never say this to my husband, right, of 20 years with 3 kids, but I think you need to go to America in 2 weeks' time to this event."
Crazy.
Right, I know, right? Imagine, I'm like, what? I was like, get lost. No way. There's no way that I'm going to pack my bags up, go to America for like 2 weeks, leave my family and everything, because you wrote down some messages in the middle of the night. And then you met some lady that happened to coincidentally say exactly the same thing, that matched. No way. So I wasn't going to go, right? I was like, get lost. I'm not doing this. But in the second message at the very end, it said, Karl, you will believe, something like, you will see. And Susie had underwritten the line, the word see like 4 or 5 times. We didn't know what that meant. She'd just done it in her sleep, half asleep, right? So anyway, a couple of weeks later, I was still thinking I'm not going. And this is on the 22nd of May now. So I'm still thinking, this isn't happening. So I went to a coffee shop in Perth on the beach and just closed my eyes, put my earpods in and played the contact meditation CD that the message told me to do, right? I thought, I'll just do it. Like, what have I got to lose, right? And it was a beautiful talk about consciousness. Effectively, all it is taking your consciousness out of your body, going up and joining a collective global consciousness, and then going up into space effectively to the next level of universal consciousness.
Yes.
And effectively saying, hey, I'm here. This is where I am. I'm on this beach. Come and say hello. Effectively, that's what it is, right? You tap into the big consciousness, and then you kind of picture where it is you are on the beach, and, things are supposed to happen, right? And apparently around the world, people do this all the time, and things do happen. So I did this meditation with my eyes closed, like 20 minutes, and then went and sat on the beach on a sand dune on my own. This is in May, so it's pretty empty, right? And then I'm sitting looking out at the ocean, at the horizon. There's a clear band of sky in between the ocean and cloud. And there's a small boat, a big boat, and an oil rig. It's about 4:30 in the afternoon. And I see this thing pop up from behind the small boat in like a diagonal, zip, like kind of, movement, like straight. And it's just stopped like that on the horizon. And I'm looking at it thinking, what's that? That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I can't really tell what it is. Is it a helicopter? No, I don't know. Anyway, this thing started to move directly towards me. And it got bigger and bigger. And the best way I can describe it, imagine if it was like a kind of, remember the front of like a motorhome, that big?
Yeah.
Like imagine the front of a motorhome and the size of like a motorhome, something like that, maybe a bit longer. I couldn't really see the length of it. But imagine that as you were looking at it like in the sky, someone was wobbling the air around it. So you knew, you could see there was something big was there, but it was like being distorted by someone wobbling a load of air around it. That's the best way I can describe it. So this thing stopped, I'd say about halfway, about 2.5K away, because the horizon's about 5K.
Yep.
And in my head, I thought it stopped about 2.5K away. And I'm sitting on the beach going, wow, that's really cool. What is it? Looking at the small boat in the distance now and the big boat and the oil rig for reference. Going, what's that thing? And then honestly, and it's the first time I've said this, but here we go. It's like someone inside the thing pressed a button and a window opened up in the sky.
Right.
Like a large hexagonal window. Remember it, right? Like this, big enough, like the whole front of a camper van, basically, was this window, like a window in the sky. And I'm looking, going, whoa, look at that. And in the window, I kid you not, was 2 human-looking dudes.
Right.
One of them was standing as I'm looking at them like this. One of them was standing there like this, kind of clearly looking at me.
Yep.
And the other one was kind of bent down with his hand on his knee. You know the way you do that? You bend down
Yes.
next to the other guy. And he was looking at me too, like this. So 2 of them, and I'm looking at these 2 guys standing in the window in the sky off Perth, Australia, going, whoa, look at that. And the whole experience lasted about 20 seconds. And during that time, there was this kind of really cool moment of, okay, this is happening. You're looking at me. I know that. And I know that you know that I'm looking at you. And this is on purpose, right? I'm like, okay, this is cool. And this really cool feeling came over me, like a super cool feeling. Like Fonzie from Happy Days? Like, hey, that's the way I get to remember it. It's just like, this is cool. This is super cool. Everything's cool. The word cool was just going through me like, this is so cool. Yeah, okay. And it's like someone clicked the button again and the window went like this and the thing just fizzled away in the sky.
You're going to sit there going, what?
So I just was like, whoa, like that just happened, right? Like I'm 44 years old, I no mental problems, like, I haven't seen things in the past. And I just saw that just happened, right? And I know it happened. So I phoned my mate and said, this just happened. He's like, whoa, no, because he knew the story of what had been happening beforehand. So I said, okay, I think I need to go to America.
Yep.
I think this is enough of a sign to go to America. I get it. Okay, that's enough. I get it. Whatever's happening, this is real and let's go. So anyway, to cut a long story short, that's the meat of it all. I went to America and this was just 4 days of people talking about they're very personal experiences. Mm-hmm. So what struck me was the word experiencer. So the first day of the conference was a lady talking about people who've had experiences. And I'm sitting in the back of the room going, I think that's me. I'm classing myself as an experiencer here, whatever that means. And I had a few more experiences, got introduced to one of the top journalists in the world that covers all this stuff. I spent a lot of time with her. Her name's Linda Moulton Howe. She has a podcast and all this kind of stuff. And she effectively made me realize that, what was happening to Susie and I was pretty significant,
Yes.
And I should pay attention to all of these experiences. But the idea for Awaken App, the messages had said idea, journey, all this kind of stuff. So the idea for Awaken App came to me in the first session of the first day of Contact in the Desert. I was talking to all these people who had stories, experiences, real life truth experiences. I'm talking doctors, surgeons, lawyers, top business people, scientists, respected people, politicians. And each one of them would tell me, this happened to me. I saw this, or I know this, or this happened to me or my family, or it's always happened, or whatever. But they would always say the same thing over. They'd always say, but I could never talk about this in my real life.
Yes. Yep.
And that just went into me. And I thought, how sad is that? That if it's happening to me, and that there's these other prominent people who people respect in society, the people that we look up to, and if they're not telling their truth, then there's this worldwide, global kind of, thing that's happening where no one is really talking about what's actually going on and the stuff that actually matters, right? Stuff that actually matters. So I had the idea for a software system then. I actually wrote it down. I was going to call it awake.com and ended up being awaken.app. And came back. I didn't even want to make the app. Even though I had the idea for it, I was saying to Susie, I don't know, why would I do this? It's not going to make any money. Why would I do this? And then the last thing that I'll mention is that I was sitting on my couch on the 27th of September last year. And after a series of more messages effectively telling me, Karl must make the app. He must make it now. The messages told me pretty much what to make and what to put in it, right? And why. That's the truth. That's my truth. I sat on the couch after months of I don't want to do this. It's not going to make money. Why would I just spend money on something that's not going to make money? It's ridiculous, right? That was my point of view. And on the 27th of September, I just sat on the couch. Susie was having a coffee opposite me in the kitchen. And I simply said, okay, I'll make Awaken App, right? And when I said that, I swear, Milvo, it was like the first time in my life I've experienced this. I've experienced it since. It was like I was touched by the hand of God.
Right.
It was like someone reached into my chest and literally touched my heart and it exploded. I'm not talking about emotion. I'm talking about an explosion of universal law. I just burst into tears, crying, couldn't stop crying for minutes. And it came from nowhere because it was quite a rational decision. Okay, I'll just make, like a business person, okay, I'll just make the app. But something in me, in the deepest part of my soul, knew that was what I was supposed to do as a result of this journey. Boom. And then I made the app in 2 months and away we go. The rest is history.
So that's a brilliant, beautiful, amazing story. Thank you for sharing, because I know that's taken an immense amount of courage for you to talk to this, given that you haven't probably spoken much more to this. There's probably a very select few that you've had this conversation with. And again, I love the fact that you've gone there with me on this. So I feel extremely just grateful and honored that you chose my platform to open up. So I appreciate that. And I thank you also, because it makes me feel more open about where I am and my journey and what's going on. I came from a background of small country town, very closed off, no woo-woo, none of this sort of stuff. I was the anti-vegetarian, the anti-vegan, the anti-yoga, all these sorts of things. It's like, these people live in a different world. I'm so far transformed now into, for me, everything is truth. Everything is possible. If we as a society believe that the only thing that we have in life is what's put through us through television, and that there are not other life forms, galaxies, energies, connections out there, then we're duped by the screen that we sit in front of, and duped by the message that wants us to contain us into this controlled world that we operate in. I'm so open to what's out there. You know, I'm needing to open up more and more about, you know, I know that I'm closed off because there's a fear of that, of not being open myself to what could all that bring in. I know I've seen in my old house, I would see spirits. You know, I would see these images sort of go past doorways, and I'm like, "What was that?" Like, catch you out of the corner of your eye. I've walked along the street with my wife and going, you know, turned around. She goes, "What was that?" I said, "There's a dude on a bike," and she goes, "There's no one on a bike." Like, and there was no one there. Like, but literally, I saw this person ride past on a bike. Like, and it was so clear. And so, I know that there is something in me that has this connection thing, but there's also this part of me going, "Oh, am I ready to go there or not?" And you're right, the breath work, the cacao, the constant work to open up and just open the soul, open the spirit, open the mind. I'm doing a lot of reading about it, but now it's actually going through that process of opening up. So again, I think your story is just absolutely beautiful, awesome. It's amazing that you've opened up about it, because freedom comes from that opening up as well.
Look, this has been bubbling under me. You can imagine having these experiences and not the difference between Susie and I is that because we learned months, when you Google it, what's happening, instantly it comes up with, oh, your wife is channeling. It's called channeling. It's a thing, right?
Yes.
And suddenly you go on Google and the whole bloody world is channeling. We didn't know this. And we're like, hang on a minute, there's millions of people who we would have looked at and gone, oh yeah, they're connected with all that kind of stuff. They're just making it up. And now look at them differently and going, well, hang on a minute, if it's happened to us, all these other millions of people that's happening to, I can't look at them and say that it's not true or real either. The amazing thing of my journey is that toward the end, I'm still learning, but I've gone on a journey of kind of wanting to sensationalize it all, right? So I was saying to Susie at the start, oh my God, we need to tell everyone about this. This is the most significant thing that's ever happened to a human being on the planet ever, right? And she'd say, be quiet, baby. I'm just, it's channeling. You look on YouTube, lots of people doing it. No one cares, right? No one cares. That's what my wife actually says, it's very personal to me. There's lots more to the story, which go for her as well. It's very personal. Yeah. So she takes it as a very personal thing. Whereas me, who I am, a bit of an extrovert, I'm like, this is great. Someone make a movie about this, right? But I've also learned as well that it wouldn't matter, even if I'd somehow snapped a photograph of the guys with a sign saying, hey, we're sponsor-based or whatever, my name's God, whatever it is, right? Even if I got them on camera interviewing them next to me, no one would care anyway, right? Like literally no one would believe it anyway. So all that matters is my truth and my journey and what I'm doing as a result of that, right?
Yes.
And for me to be able to actually just say the words out loud, right? Especially to you, because you're a member of Awaken App, which is all part of the whole journey. You're right, the freeing feeling that of just telling the truth, of just being myself. And that's what at the core, that's what I'm trying to inspire people who join Awaken App and anyone that listens to me, is to find that place of pure truth about who you are, and don't be afraid to just be that person and share that in public. I'm trying to create that online space to encourage that.
And fully support that. The thing about it is that for those people who don't believe, it's actually their limiting belief, not you, because it is true. And these things do happen out there. The more and more I go on this path, and the more, I've just done a program which is about a meditation, which is who am I? So you said, is this it? Our other question is, well, who am I? And the question that we were asked is, who was I before my parents were born? Which is a really powerful thing, saying I existed as a soul or as a spirit, and I always will. So even though my human body that I'm in now and I'm doing what I need to do now disappears, this energy force that I am, I am just nothing more than energy that's now absorbed into this human body. And when this human body goes away and decays, that energy still exists and it continues to move on. Now, whichever galaxy, whichever system, whichever form that energy decides to consume moving forward, that energy is always there. And the more we look at this space about us just being energy and really just understanding that that's us and how connected we are to every single tree, plant, bird, I've read something recently which was amazing, sitting there going, you and I think that there is like a space or a gap between us. I mean, we're doing this remotely. You're in Perth, I'm in Melbourne. But the reality is, even if we look out there, every single particle between you and I is an energy particle. Just that in some cases, it's not reflecting light, and in other cases, it is reflecting light. But the energy still exists. So even though you and I are remote, we're energetically connected just by having this conversation through whatever other channels we're actually doing. And I can feel you every time you've spoken. So every time you spoke, like I've been getting energy and vibes and tingles and everything else. And when you surrender into that space and you surrender and go, no, this is actually really true. And if you don't believe it, that's fine. I'm comfortable for you not to believe it. And I'm not even going to judge you if you call me a wacko or woohoo or whatever else. And that's okay, because we're all here for our own purpose and on our own journey. And this is mine. And I'm happy to be there and just continue on this journey. And so I think yours is an amazing journey, and it's your journey, and and it's Sarah's journey, and it's absolutely beautiful.
And for me, just in the last few weeks, something super beautiful, if I want a better phrase, that's come from what's happened on my journey on this train is that I'll have a physical experience like something that I've been describing, and then someone will get on my train and give me a book, and I'll read the book, and it will describe the exact physical experience that I've just had. And I'll go, whoa, if I'd read this book 2 weeks ago, it would have meant nothing. But now it's explaining the journey that I'm on. And the most recent book that someone gave me was about, I just started. Now, I was brought up a Catholic, right? But then just moved away from the church at age 12. The second I wasn't forced to go. I moved away from it, went through the whole atheist thing. And pretty much up until this journey, I was quite comfortable with the fact that, I'm just a human here and I'm part of the universe, and, whatever God is, right? Cool. Whatever you want to call it, call it. As long as you're not hurting anyone, that's great. And then I started to be more inquisitive about the concept of God and Jesus and all that kind of stuff, which just naturally came upon me from nowhere. Like, oh, why do I want to learn about this? Okay, I'll learn about it, right? It feels right. Everything else to this point has worked out, so let's just learn about this. And you mentioned that everything is energy, right? And in this book, the Hebrew word for God interpreted, I'm learning this, right? I must state here, I'm not preaching to anyone. This is just an objective book about the secret teachings of the Bible, which I'm reading. And the Hebrew word for God is interpreted as a word called Elohim. Now, the term Elohim effectively means, when explained, it means beings of light and sound.
Yes.
So effectively what the people who wrote the Bible are saying is that God is multiple, is plural, beings of light and sound. Now, what is light and sound? Energy. What is everything that we are created from? Energy, right? Yes. So I've been receiving kind of, I guess you'd call them knowings over this journey, which didn't happen before. So I'll just receive a knowing and go, oh, it'll just sit with me for a week. I'll go, oh, I know this now. Cool. So this most recent one is the awakening journey, right? So you've been on it, I've been on it. What happens is we go through an awakening, whether it's through a breathwork, men's course, whatever it is. And as a human, as a soul, we begin to awaken. And then we start to learn or remember the things that we need to remember to help our awakening journey, okay? Then what happens, I'm noticing, which I'm sure you will too through your podcast, is that anyone that goes through this journey suddenly, at some point, thinks, you know what, I'm going to go and do something which helps other people to go through the same journey. Now, I've been experiencing, obviously I created the app, you do your podcast, and all your guests are doing this, right? They've gone through the same exact process. Now, my question is, why? Why do we go through an awakening experience ourselves? And then why do we unselfishly want to assist the rest of all humans with the knowledge that we then have? And the answer that I'm coming to after reading this book, right, is that effectively, if you accept that we're all created with the same energy, right, by God source or Elohim or whatever it is, then we're all effectively shards of the same thing, right? Yes. So therefore, when I go through a healing, my natural instinct is to heal the rest of myself, which is other people. Yes. So selfishly, in me wanting to create and awaken, to heal other people and help them awaken, because we're all one effectively, if you accept that concept, I'm effectively selfishly trying to heal myself.
Yeah, I understand that.
With me being everyone else.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's just a journey that I'm observing is a normal thing. And then you look at, and then you take that as a microcosm and look more. You say, well, is that just the journey of the human soul? Is that just what we're supposed to do?
Yep. It's look, there are so many questions, and I love all the questions. For me, it's interesting to talk about you go through an experience and then you read a book. So the book I'm reading, or the series I'm reading now, is from Toltec, the Toltec readings, which is from the Teotihuacan in Mexico, and it's this guy Don Miguel Ruiz. And the Toltecs they weren't a race; they were like the wisdom owners from, and this is thousands of years old. And they talk too exactly about where they saw the world before, basically, if you like, the next level down of religions kicked in, and before all these other people who wanted to contain the knowledge or have this other thing. But ultimately, for me, it comes back to we're all healing to get back to love. So we've all moved away from love. We've all moved away to, there's pain in our life and there's suffering in our life and there's trauma in our life, but that becomes a bit about me. But, which isn't a selfish thing, but it's just not an awareness thing. But the more we can release the traumas, the breath work, and as you said, everything you've spoken about, every time you've spoken about your breath work, you've said this in my solar plex, this thing I've done, it just keeps opening up. Mm. The more we open up to love is how we connect, because there is no judgment in love. There is no labeling in love. There is no separation in love, because love is that energetic connection that we all have, understanding that we are all just energetic beings, that are just here to love life and just be part of everything that we're actually doing. And so for me, it's the healing is actually removing those layers, those barriers that through ancestral or through family trauma or through, grandparents and great-grandparents, and, because obviously our great-grandparents told our grandparents how to live and our grandparents told our parents how to live. And then that's where we've ended up. And as you said earlier on, that's what's happened with your son. It's sort of like, we could be the generation that breaks apart from that. And we can break some of these limiting things that are going to go, well, why don't we just all go back to being love and just be open and just treat everyone with the same level of love, and we end up in a really beautiful space. The Awaken app, by people telling the truth, means that they can actually not feel that they're someone else. They can be the person that they can actually be. And that person is ultimately just comes back to, I can love who I am. And if I love who I am because I'm true to myself, I can then learn to love others around me. And it's an amazing space to get into, I believe.
Yeah, the two things I'd like to say on that. Number one is, in this book, a phrase which is really resonating with, sticking in my mind, I can't get rid of it, is that over time, over the evolution of man cares more about what man does, right? So the consummation of material things, what I create, as soon as you create something, it's twisted into something which, can be something else, right? So we worry so much, man, it's in our nature, because we can create. What we create is material things which we then hold on to, right, as being the most important things. But what the phrase says is, man is so consumed with what man does that man has forgotten what man is.
Beautiful.
And for me, that pretty much encapsulates everything. It says, stop looking outside to find what you're looking for. Remember what you are on the inside, and what you have to offer from the inside. And with Awaken App, what I'm trying to, it's a process, right? I see it's a process. We are today told by the media that we are not important, that we're just a number. When we look to idols, movie stars, gurus, right? We all follow them. They've got millions of followers. And in doing that, we are giving away our innate internal power for ourselves to contribute or to, stand in that power that we have. And what I want to do is, with Awaken App, the whole point of it is to say, you are special. You have knowledge. I mean, you'll see it's very subliminal, but all the way through the app, it's all about share your knowledge, share your experiences and share your gifts with our community. I'm trying to empower everyone to have that feeling of, I have this to offer and I'm going to offer it. I'm not going to be quiet and think that people aren't going to value what I have to offer. I'm going to shout about it and share it. But there's a process in that. It takes time for someone to get to a point where they feel comfortable in a room full of people or an app full of thousands of people to do that. So that I'm just creating that safe space to give people that time so that when they're ready, they have the support there to shine and give, and help all those other people in the app that are on a different point in their journey.
Yes. Yeah. And as a user of the app, I'd say you're absolutely on point. For what I get out of the app is exactly what you're trying to achieve. I feel so aligned to being able to drop stuff into there, comfortable to drop stuff into there, confident. Because when we start on these journeys and we start to put out, it's easy to grab everyone else's sayings and these other quotes and everything else. But when you go, I think I've got wisdom and I'm confident I've got wisdom and I want to drop my wisdom into a space. That in itself, you have to get past a lot of your own limiting beliefs, but knowing that I can drop these sorts of things into your app is just super powerful for me because I'm like, yeah, this is really comfortable because this does make sense and it does work. And then you get the feedback from people going, oh, wow, that was so cool. And you go, excellent, thank you. You got something out of it. I got something out of it. And I do honestly believe that you've created a really beautiful, safe space for everybody. So, and it'll come. I think that what's the movie, Field of Dreams? If you build it, they will come. I think this is exactly what you've created for this this Awaken community.
Yeah, I'm starting to see it. We're starting to see the numbers of daily users, really starting to go up and up and up on an upward curve. And like I said, for me, the biggest thing for me was to keep money out of the app and keep the focus of the app. Which is literally, the thing that you said at the start of this podcast, which is my goal, is to open the eyes of men and awaken the masses. That didn't come from me. This is important to say. This came through the messages. We are trying to assist Karl to open the eyes of men and awaken the masses.
Beautiful.
That did not come from me. So that's the core of what Awaken App is. It's cool. I've had people reach out to me. I had an interview recently, and I think I might get featured in Forbes magazine, Forbes UK. Cool. So that could be a bit of good publicity that hopefully will get more people around the world to maybe look at it, or I might get some offers from investment. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But all the stuff is happening at the right time at each stop on my train journey. And now in fact, a cool thing happened in the last couple of weeks. Since I've been reading this book recently, I stopped trying to make sense of everything with my logical mind. I just stopped and literally did this. Okay, I'm in. I finally let go of logic. Just take me. Whatever's guiding me, I'm in. I'm going to stop trying to analyze it all. I'm just going to go with it. Trust, trust, trust. And since then, I've had this lovely freeing feeling of, great, let's go. Show me,
I absolutely love that. The surrender is amazing. Resistance takes up energy. I've said this to a few other people. It's like you think about anything. Like you try and ride a bike on a really high gear. You try to walk against the wind. You try to pedal upstream, right? You're always putting resistance in. What happens if you just let go and went with the flow? But it doesn't take energy to surrender and actually go with it and allow the universe that has already predetermined where we're going and what it is and what messages it will give to us. If you just surrender, all those messages just become really easy to see. The journey becomes very clear and open, and we can just follow down that path. And I'm learning to do that every single day as well. And it's an amazing freeing feeling.
It's a thing. It's not just me. It's not just you. When you look around and you actually open up and you listen, you notice that there's so millions of people are saying the same thing. And you got to think, well, okay, if millions of people are saying the same thing, there's got to be something in this, right? This is something that humans go through on this journey. This is real. Let's pay attention.
That's awesome. So you've been super generous with your time today, Karl. I think we've got to a nice logical finish point. I've just absolutely loved the stories. Again, I'm hugely grateful and appreciative that you chose this platform to open up about some of your other truths that you would like to have got out there. And I really look forward to us continuing interacting as we go forward, both via the app, but also, I'd love to be able to get on and continue to just have some face-to-faces and just catch up as we go along because, I'm just loving seeing the journey and where you're going. So from me, thank you very much for being a part of this podcast.
Well, thank you very much. It's been so special to be able to talk to you and share stories. And, as you know, anything I can do to support you on your journey, brother, I am in.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. You have a wonderful, beautiful day with your family, and we'll definitely chat soon. So, folks, what an amazing man Karl Ohare is. That is one of the most incredible journeys I've heard of. I just sat here and look, I'm still full of buzz, full of energy, just really a lot of goosebumps going on. So I hope you all enjoy Karl's story as much as I did. Definitely listen with an open mind and an open heart. This is truth, and this is what's happening out there globally. And there is an awakening taking place across the globe, and it's time for us to all get on board. So again, I'd like to really thank Karl for that journey. So that's it for me. As you said, you can find me and the Unearthed Man in LinkedIn, Facebook, and on Instagram. I hope you all have a wonderful day. So sending you much love and care, the Unearthed Man.